Pictures, we need some from that. Okay. Well, there. Good morning, everybody. We are continuing on in the halachos of ona'ah, correct? Okay. So on page 21, we're discussing how do you establish, okay, the set rate of a particular product. So if you look at the grade, this is a modern sefer. Kimonoi, okay, Visitonoi. Kimonoi is what we would call retail. Sitonoi is what we would call wholesale. So obviously, retail and wholesale have different prices. There's a set price, an assumed price for retail, and there's a set price for wholesale, correct? Let's say you have two stores next to each other. One is retail and one is wholesale. Or the way he depicts it here, you have two marketplaces next to each other. One is a wholesale marketplace, one is a retail marketplace. Okay? For example, Costco and Stop and Shop. Okay? Costco is cheaper, but Costco is wholesale. You can't buy one thing of paper towels in Costco. It just doesn't work like that. Okay? You can't go to Costco and buy a small thing of peanuts. You're going to buy a massive thing of peanuts. So obviously peanuts cost less in Costco than they do in Stop and Shop, and therefore overcharging for wholesale would be measured by one thing. Overcharging for retail would be measured by something else. This is why one can claim that the stores in Kennedy Airport are not engaging in ona'ah. The reason they're not engaging in ona'ah is because for airports, there's a market. And whether we like it or not, because of the fact that the TSA does not allow water bottles past security. So by definition, the people who are past security have set a certain market, which is higher than the market if I go across the street and I get myself a bottle of water. So ona'ah would be if you would open up a booth in Kennedy Airport higher than the standard average price of Kennedy Airport, right? Or the two, okay, that may be ona'ah, eno chinami. But if you open up, or if you open up a store here and you start selling the prices that exist in Kennedy Airport, that would be ona'ah. And you'd say, well, how would anybody even accomplish that? Well, it's very simple. If, let's say you have a tourist that comes out of Kennedy Airport, he goes into a store in the Five Towns, so he could easily be fooled that that's the price of a bottle of water in America, as a mashuk in the country, right? And if you, in the Five Towns, sold a bottle of water for that price, then obviously you would violate ona'ah. Okay, continuing on page 22, there's a unique approach of the Beis Yosef, who believes that kemat ona'ah does not apply today anymore. He says, if you look by the gray in the Beis Yosef over here, Shimon Reish Tes, it's actually in the halachas of Mechira, not in the halachas of ona'ah. On page 22 over there, it says, Aval cholav v'giza, I guess in his time these were the things, milk and shearings, she'ein lahem shayadua, that have no fixed price for that commodity. Ela kol echad kona kamo shechafetz, and everybody buys the price that he wants and how he wants. Less be ona'ah, there is no concept of ona'ah. That would obviate almost all ona'ah today. He believes that things that do not have a set market price do not have ona'ah. And you can make a very good argument that many commodities today do not have a fixed market price. Okay? That's the Beis Yosef, what he writes over there. Now, this was a question that was asked, I believe, on Tuesday or something of that nature. On page 23, says the Shulchan Aruch, Sim Reish Kav Zayin Kavav, Hagoy ein lo ona'ah. There is no concept of ona'ah vis-a-vis an akum. Now, the reason why there's no concept vis-a-vis an akum, okay, is if you look back to the psukim, it says like this: if a person will make a sale to his colleagues, or he'll acquire it, al tonu ish es achiv. Don't overcharge, right? Ish es achiv, a man and his brother. Well, ish es achiv only applies to a yid. A yid is termed achiv. A guy would not be termed achiv, and therefore there will be no issue of Allah. Yes, continue. Yeah,
is there a difference between things that are commodities versus things that are non-commodities? I mean, things that are staples versus things that are non-staples?
So the only difference would be if staples have a fixed price, then their ona'ah would be clear, and things that don't have a fixed price, the ona'ah would be beyond the range.
Does anyone discuss the concept of, for example, for commodities market elasticity? So, for example, no one's going to pay more than a certain amount for milk. You feel, I mean, there's an understood amount.
But ona is a situation where you can get someone to pay more than the amount for milk. You have some unsuspecting person goes into a store, he doesn't know the price of milk. A parent sends a child who's a teenager, here's a wad of cash, can you get me milk in a store? And the kid just knows, okay, I'll pick the milk, I'll buy it, and chas v'shalom, the storekeeper overcharges him, he's chayav ona.
We assume that the person, an educated customer or any customer?
Any customer. We discussed that already, you were in Eretz Yisrael, that you have a certain amount of time to become educated by which you could claim ona. Past that amount of time, you can't claim ona. Okay?
Rabbi, if
yeah.
Jewish merchant sells to a non-Jew,
The Goy Shahona Es Yisrael.
we risk Chilul Hashem.
Again, whenever you have Chil Hashem, you're 100% correct. Again, whenever you have Chil Hashem, you're 100% correct. And let's remember something. It's also to be mate es ha'akum. We're not talking about fooling someone. Fooling an akum, that's for sure usher to do. There may be even usher beyond Chil Hashem. Right? Whereas tos akum, a mistake of an akum, is mutter for us to keep. Mate es ha'akum is a problem.
So if you just decide you're going to sell something on Amazon way above market price, you could decide to sell it that way. If somebody wants to buy it, they could buy it.
No.
No? On Amazon.
Amazon is also, you have an on Amazon. Why is there no on Amazon?
You're not after selling to Amazon, you're selling to anyone.
But let's say you know that a yid is picking it up. What do you mean?
So if you know...
Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry, in fact, right. Wait. The guy shahon es Yisrael, let's say a guy is ma'ane a Jew, right? Let's say he overcharges a Jew. Machzir ona b'dinim shalaru. Then he has to return the ona if, in fact, we would have a court system in the particular locale where we live to which Goyim would be subjected to, which, of course, is a theoretical concept. But the reason why is lo yehei zeh chomer mi Yisrael. He has to at least equal a Jew. It can't be more strict than that of a Jew. And therefore, the halacha would be that he would have to pay us back if he charges ona. Okay, let's start the next subject. I know we're going to take a break next week. Let's continue on in ona on page 28. We have so far discussed ona, overcharging with money, with finances. What about ona where it doesn't involve actual cash? So the Rambam gives an example. We call that bartering, okay? I have something and I swap it for your item. Afilu machat b'shiraim. I think a bunch of years ago there was some article written about a fellow who started out with a paper clip and he bargained it all the way up to a house with many, many trades. It probably took about a year or two to do that. So someone swaps a item with an item. Afilu machat b'shiraim. Even if he swaps out a needle for expensive cloth, or one guy has a lamb and he swaps it out with a horse. Now, obviously, a horse is worth a lot more than a lamb, right? Today, how much does a lamb cost today? After all, $50, $100. How much could a horse cost?
Thousands, right?
So Baruch Hashem, I had this chus. I don't know if I call it a chus. I had this chus to see Georgina Bloomberg's horse. Okay.
Mayor's daughter?
The mayor's daughter. Okay, when I was in Mount Kisco, it was actually the day before my son Shlomo was born. So I took my kids for a Chalmoi trip to a very fancy stable. They keep very, very fancy high-end horses. Okay, the rent for the stable on these horses is probably half of most of what your mortgages are. It's not a joke. So, so her horse is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, so horses can be worth a fortune of money. Sheep, there's a limit to how much they can be worth. So a guy swaps out a sheep for a horse. That's a meshugana, right? The guy who takes the sheep. Ain lo, what?
He's hungry.
That's true. Ain lo hona. There's no concept of ona. The Rambam paskins ona is only with money. There's no such thing as overcharging in a bartership. Why? Because for whatever it is, the guy right now, as you said, let's say the guy has a horse, but he's hungry. So right now he wants a sheep. To him, right now, a sheep is worth as much as a horse. Haval hamachlef peros, but if you switch like items and like items, and right, then obviously there could be ona. Okay. The Rambam writes an interesting thing. The Ravid writes on the Rambam, great lashon. The Ravid always has great lashonos on the Rambam. Look in the gray on the side, unbelievable. Davar zelo yadati me'ayin lo. I have no idea where the Rambam got this halacha from. Uvulai ta. Maybe he made a mistake about how he read a Yerushalmi. Unbelievable. And if you go down,
You're reading on it?
on the same page 28. Okay? Vim b'toras mecher. If I did it in the context of a sale, makbid al dmeim, and I'll makbid on their money, even a horse and a cow, kanu, it works, umachzir ona, and you return the ona. That's not true. It's absolutely not true, says the Ravid. As long as you're doing it in the context of a sale. In other words, you're swapping a horse for a sheep, but I'm doing it with Toras Mecher. I'm doing it in a case where I'm makbid on the value. It's not just, you come over to my house, hey, I have a sheep, I have a horse, hey, take my horse, take my sheep, right? But we're doing it as farmers, we're two farmers, we're making a business transaction, and it's clear to everybody it's a financial business transaction. There absolutely would be the concept of ona.
Isn't it also consistent with the Shava Isn't it consistent with the principle of Shava Kesef?
Yeah, well, that's what they're arguing about. Okay, that's what they're arguing about. Now, continuing on, if we look at on page 29, the Ketzais Achoshen, was an Achron, obviously, quotes the Ritzvah. And it's a scenario where Rav Kahana was given some sort of a cloth, a kerchief. Probably it really means like that type of thing that the Baba Sali wore to cover his head. If you have ever seen pictures of the Baba Sali, I'm sure you all have. So the halacha is that if you have a firstborn son, you have to redeem him for money. We all know that halacha. And you have to redeem him for 5 slime. And the Gemara says that Rav Kahana was given as Pidyon Haben, right? Whether he was a Kayan or not is another conversation, but let's keep things simple. There's 2 Rav Kahanas. Tosfos says in one place he was a Kayan. And he was given a Sudar. Now this Sudar apparently would not normally be worth 5 slime. Says the Gemara in Kiddushin, since Rav Kahana was Gavra Rabbah, he was a very great person, Sudra, and he needed a Sudra. In other words, a regular person doesn't walk around with a head covering the way the Baba Sali walked around, even where the Baba Sali came from. But where the Baba Sali came from, right, Morocco, right, that was considered the type of thing that a Chashav Rav would wear. So, what?
You say that the Sudar over there has to be Daled al Daled?
It's a separate thing. But the point is that it was a garment that he wore because he was a Gav Rabbah. I presume it was something along those lines. So therefore, for him, it was worth 5 slime because it was a commodity, it was something he needed, he valued, and therefore, it was as if the father of whichever baby we were talking about over there gave something worth 5 slime. So the Ritva is bringing this Gemara to see an important point. That something, because of a person's need for an item, unique need for an item, could be worth more to them than the going market rate. And therefore, he says, Shamina mihacha, we see from here, Shamocha chafetz l'chaver, if I sell you something b'shisa for $6, and in the marketplace it's only worth 5. Ilahai lokech, if to this purchaser it's worth $6, ein bo misham ona, there's no ona. If to him in his circumstance this item is very important, then there's no issue of ona. Because if you would ask the purchaser, how much is this worth to you? Oh, this is worth 6 slime. Is it really worth 6 slime? No. Is it really worth $6? No. But to him, it's worth $6. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting in the Ritva. But let's say to the person himself, it's not really worth $6. It just, he's under stress and he has to get the item right now. That is called setting a price out of pressure. We call that price gouging in America. Lo shmei ketzitza, it's not called a price setting. And even if the money exchange hands, you could go and collect the money back. So, the Ritva is making a distinction which at times can be a little bit fine. The distinction between whether something is worth something to a person because of their circumstance, because of who they are, because of what's important to them, and versus the fact that someone will pay any amount of money for something because they're under stress, they're under pressure. So take the example of medicine, okay? If someone has a child or whatever it is, a relative that's sick, and they need to get medicine, and it's the middle of the night, they can't say empachki, they're going to buy medicine. If someone holds them over a barrel and charges an exorbitant amount for the medicine, they're still going to pay the price. In that case, the Ritva says we do not apply the principle that to this lokach, this purchaser, it's worth a lot of money. Now, you could say you do, because if you would ask him, will you pay this crazy amount of money for medicine? Say, yeah, my kid is sick, I need the medicine. Nonetheless, that's a case where he's dachuk, in which case we don't apply it. But if it's a case where to him this item is very, very valuable, okay? To him this item is very valuable. For whatever reason. Most people don't care about the item. But to him it's very valuable. Then in that case, there would not be ona. And again, it is sometimes hard to make this distinction between these two things. Okay?
A center that he was looking for a while, and like a rare center, is worth way more than you design and have it on.
Correct. Or let's say, or another example of this would be, let's say, a simple example would be a coin collector. Right? So to most of us, if we would come across a coin from 1879 and someone would say, there's a certain price to it, right? You could go on these websites and you can find out what your price is for a coin from 1879. But if you have someone who has a collection, of all the coins from 1800 to 1900, and he needs that coin, to him, and you'll say, you charge him double. He'll say, no, I don't care that I'm paying double. To me, it's worth it. It completes my set. So again, that's, I think, the case the Ritz is talking about, as opposed to price gouging where someone's really under stress for money.
The mecher versus the case of a kahana, where it's like a custom kind of thing, where basically it's kind of a not aspect.
Right. Okay. That he doesn't make the distinction. He doesn't make the distinction. Now the Ketzai says about this Ritva, and he has a kasha on this Ritva from a Gemara, and then we'll have to continue. But let's understand the kasha on the Gemara. The Gemara brings a case, okay, based on halacha. I'm sorry, halacha is based on the Gemara. Brings a case like this. Let's say a guy is stringing pearls, similar to my case of coins. He's stringing pearls, okay, and he needs a matching pearl. Now, a pearl really is not worth that much money, but for him, this pearl is very valuable because it completes his string of pearls. Sha'adam rotel azavgon. He wants to match them. It's mamish how it works today too. Yesh lo no, there still would be overcharging if the seller charged him too much for a pearl. Mashma da filo halokech gufei tzarach lo. Okay, even if the purchaser needs it. Okay, then he brings another case. What happens if a person is running away from the authorities, and there is a boat, a ferry? The ferry is going to take them across the river. And across the river, they'll be safe from the authorities. And the ferry guy says, I'm only going to pay you if you give me an exorbitant amount. Okay? And then he takes him across the river. Okay? So then the question is, can you say mishat anibach? And the answer is that if he takes him across the river, and the boatman, whatever you call it, already took the money for the trip, he doesn't have to return the money. So there is a case where someone is charging an exorbitant amount of money, okay, because he knows that the guy running away from the authorities is under pressure. Yet we say that if the money didn't change hands, let's say we foolishly took him across the river before getting payment. So then he could say, Mishat anibach, I was playing with you. But let's say he took payment before he took the guy across the river, and then he took the guy across the river. Now the guy says, listen, you're ridiculous. It costs $5 to go across the river. What do you charge me $100 for? Too bad, so sad. You paid the money, right? So says the Ketzos, that's a big problem, because the Ritva said that if you set a price, if you do price gouging, because the person needs the medicine for his kid, the money goes back, right? The money goes back. And yet in the river case, the Gemara clearly says that if the trip already happened across the river, as it says in the Gemara in Kiddushin, right? If he already took him across the river, he can't demand the money back if the riverman charged him an exorbitant price. So why is that not price gouging? If the Ritva said that price gouging you could renege on, why in this case can you not renege on it? Okay? Let's stop here. We're going to review these questions and continue in a bit of a week from now. And I wish everybody a truly wonderful vacation if you're going on vacation. Those two problems.